Good morning. This is Carl Dakin, and this is the Successful Funding Show. This is hosted by me as a consultant on raising funding through my company, Dakin Capital, as a host and sponsor. And what we do on this show is we talk about funding, and usually it's from the perspective of raising money for a small, innovative business that's getting started or trying to grow up. But at the same time, we cover a broad range of other people who are raising funding, which could be a local community project, a government program, or it could be something in the form of a charitable donation, something of that nature. We're working on all of these at the current time. Today, we're going to talk about crafting offers, and this is an extraordinarily important issue because so many people don't craft offers. They basically pull something off the shelf that's a generic fit all, one size fits all kind of thing. So for today's program, I'm happy to have with me my friend, associate, and as our guest, Eric Hansen, who's been there, done it, and is planning to do it again, despite learning, and suffering all the pain and experience of raising funding. We're going to go at it one more time on a project that's called the Renaissance League, and we'll be using it as an illustration in the program to help make our points and go beyond an overview or superficial discussion of the topic. As I'm trying to get down to a level of detail that is one, a reality check, and two, something useful that the audience may take away with it. So, Eric, glad to have you with us this morning. For those who have not seen Eric in a prior show, Eric, please tell people how brilliant you are based upon your life experiences.
I don't know if I'm that brilliant, but I have been in business for myself since I was about 16 years old. So I've got all kinds of battle scars to prove it. Um, had several successful companies, and obviously, when you do it for as long as I have, you've had some failures, and you hope that you learn from the failures and you learn from the successes so that you can combine them both. And sometimes I think failures are way more important than the successes.
Yeah, so a lot. I had one guy tell me on a program a number of months ago that until I had seven failures, I couldn't be a real entrepreneur. So I quickly checked off all my failures, the majors, the minors, and those in between, and figured I clearly had met my quota and I should be okay. Uh, so um, the the topic of crafting an offer is kind of a two-part thing. I've been writing a series of articles in my instant funding newsletter that is published through LinkedIn. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can subscribe or just read any of the individual letters, or if you don't have time to read everything I pump out every day, read the weekly edition and get them all at once. That's kind of like binge watching, but maybe not as much fun as some of the TV programs. Um, so the point of the matter is that when you go out to raise funding, you want to find that person or that individual, that organization that actually is the most likely to invest in you. And it's very important that you go through that first step of figuring out who that is, what motivates them, what they care about, what would cause them to take good money out of their pocket and give it to you. And this is time that has to be spent. It has to investment has to be made, because otherwise you may create an offer that goes nowhere. It may be so bland that no one can even care about it, or it may be so non-competitive that any other offer that an investor is looking at is clearly superior to what you're offering, and you end up wasting all of your time, which you don't have time to waste, and you can spend a lot of money, be deep into a capital campaign to find out that it's not going to work. And before investing in and launching and triggering that whole series of activities that represents your campaign and starting to make pitches to investor candidates, we go back to the start and we go, well, who's going to invest more? And I use the term funding soulmate as the optimal investor because they need you more than you need them. They need you in order to succeed in their own mission. And therefore, it's a natural symbiosis between you and them, and it makes for a very good potential investment relationship. But once you know who they are, then you have to craft an offer. And the offer should be a perfect fit. As they say, if the glove doesn't fit, you can't convict. In the same way here, if you don't have an offer that matches the needs and wants of the investor candidate, you're not going to really get anywhere because you're sharing them the wrong story. They don't want, this isn't about them, it's about you. And actually, you may not be that interesting of a topic for a story. So we should get back to talking about the investor candidate. So in putting this together, if you already know who you should be talking to, either you've identified them as an individual or you have a FBI style profile of who they are, why they should care, then you start crafting the offer. So Eric, as you're putting together offers, as you're thinking about, what can I give to this investor candidate that's going to tip them over, that's a no-brainer that they cannot walk away from because it would be illogical, unreasonable for them to turn down your investment offer. What are you thinking about in terms of structure and components and anything else that could get the job done?
So what I think is most important here is it's like writing your resume and writing a cover letter for getting a job. If you have just a standard resume and a standard cover letter and you've been email blasting it through LinkedIn or whatever service, the chances of you getting a job is zero. So if you take that same approach to writing your offers, then you're going to get no interest because that's a fundamental format that every one of these people have seen 1,000 times. So take the time to research either the company or the person and really find out what is their hot button. And you may have to, and don't just send them an offer immediately, figure out what they're about, what makes them tick. And maybe it takes 2 or 3 months for you to get back to them. Take notes. So, I know that this is old fashioned, but sometimes it's worth getting some 3x5 index cards and write down on there. I know this is stupid, but write down while you're having the conversation, if you can, is this person married, or is this company ever done anything like this? What have they done? What haven't they done? Why haven't they done it? Did you ask them for a referral? I mean, these are really super simple things, but they're going to at least know who you are, and you should start that process before you're ready to even write the offer to see where they are. And the point is, Carl, is when you call them up when you have your offer ready to go and you're all proud of this piece of work that you spent bazillions of hours on, now they have heard you and you can say, hey, by the way, how is your daughter doing in school? We talked last time and she was really struggling with calculus. Did she get through that? You've got to get by what everybody else is doing somehow. So that would be my number one key advice. Treat it like a job interview.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can overstate the need to know your investor candidate. You've got to know what gets them up in the morning. If they are, an executive and they're investing essentially surplus money into a number of different things, then what are you giving them that somebody else can't give them? They're like, I can put money in the stock market and I can sell the stock, can buy it on Monday, sell it on Tuesday. I can buy it on Monday morning, sell it Monday afternoon. And a lot of the deals that I work with are private offerings, or they're even questionable whether you would call them a pure investment, or they're a strategic type of investment. And so if you don't know who you're talking to, how do you expect them to, one, know you, trust you, understand the deal, and give you any consideration? Because they have thousands and thousands of other choices. Why are you any better than any of those? And if you think that you're entitled to their money just because you're an entrepreneur, and you think that your deal is so cool that it's automatically superior to everyone else, you probably should go home and consult with a friend who will give you that heads up that you're not as great as you think you are. You're not as attractive as you think you are, and maybe you should start over again in how you approach talking to investors. I see things all the time where people walk up and they go, I need money. And I go, well, that's nice.
So, Carl, I would add to
Yeah.
that something that
Yeah.
people forget. So if you have a project, and I don't care how complex or simple it is, but if the investor candidate can't leverage that project somehow, then you just got into a whole nother difficulty of getting funded. And let me give you an example. So in your project right now that you're working on, you can leverage that with the local community because it makes sense, so that you actually are showing further benefits rather than only cash. Because if all you had to do was give them cash, then you have no residual benefit 5 years down the road. And your investor candidates are going to be purely profit driven, which may be contrary to what you're trying to achieve. So in my newest project, so the example is, I think that there's a serious problem in the private equity market. And I think there's a serious liquidity problem. So believe it or not, some of my investor candidates are actually the people that need me most, but they don't know it yet because they're stuck. Now, the process takes a lot longer, right? So I have to take really teeny tiny baby steps, and you're baiting the hook teeny bites at a time, right? But what happens is, if you do it properly and you show that the investment into your project can lead to them having more projects to invest in, or more profitability outside of your project, your chances just skyrocketed on getting the investor candidate to cooperate. And if you can't show that, I don't think it matters anymore. I think that the day and age of you throwing out this beautiful business plan and expecting to get funded, I think you're in a really tough spot unless you are brilliant, and most of us aren't. So for
Well,
whatever it's worth.
yeah, I totally agree. I look at most investment offers to be strategic alignments of my business, the project, my client's project, with the business in which the person's engaged. So I'm not looking at a bucket of money that's tagged for investment. I'm looking at a bucket of money that says, make my business larger, that's held by the investor candidate. And that's for those that are business oriented. If I'm doing an impact investment, then the bucket of money is labeled "do good for this particular cause."
Mhm.
So as we're rolling out the Renaissance League, this is a new female rugby sports organization Yes, we can and intend to make money. We're not saying we're going to make a great amount of money, so automatically we're not attractive to person who's only looking at one thing, which is a high rate of return. We have to have something else that's more compelling to get somebody to invest. And so if we go to a business that might be selling us a product that we're going to consume, which in this case, because it's a sport organization, let's just talk about uniforms. So we had a meeting with a manufacturer last week who makes uniforms for sports, and we said, hey, would you also be potentially interested in being an investor? And we didn't have to explain anything. These were old hands who knew their way around. And they go, yes, we would be interested, but of course, we'd like something in exchange. We'd like to be your exclusive supplier. And at that point in time, we're all talking though about a strategic alignment where money can come into our hands today when we need it, and we will buy product from them over time where they get their money back, not only from the investment, but from the purchasing that we're going to do of their products that we're going to consume or resell. And so in this case, it's pretty straightforward, that this is a reason for them to work with us and vice versa. Uh, at the same time, we're trying to rewrite the economic model for youth sports in the United States. And this is viewed by many people as a cause. A lot of people have come to recognize that youth sports are in a state of crisis because costs are going up, youth participation is going down, and a lot of the sources of funding for youth sports are disappearing or they're getting chipped away at rapidly. So a problem is present. Now, those who recognize this problem say, I believe in youth sports is good. I think we should do something to help regain its direction. And so they come at this from a cause standpoint. So when we talk to them about we're going to set up this organization, if all we told them was just that, we wouldn't have their attention. But if I say we're implementing a new economic model that will allow us to build youth sports, now we're in alignment of mission. And this is outside the scope of the investment. It's that add-on Eric just mentioned, which is we're going to give them something they want that's already front and center and with them. It isn't like we're trying to educate them on the problem of youth sports because we're talking to people who are already beating the drum and already concerned about it. At the same time, by definition, there's a lot of people go, there's no problem in youth sports, and you're like, well, if you really believe that, I don't know that we're going to have much to talk about because you don't see a problem. I see a problem. I'm telling you, I'm going to cure the problem. But if you don't see it, then what value am I bringing to the table? So it really does get down, as we talked about, that you've got to know who your investor candidate is, and they'll come in many sizes and shapes and flavors, more types of ice cream than Baskin Robbins offers. And because of that, you have to know each of their individual reasons to invest, because one person who may invest may be a completely different reason than the next one. And now we're getting into personalized, customized fitting of an offer to an individual candidate. And if I had 10 candidates who I thought would all invest because I've done all my background, I still may end up with 10 offers that may have some common elements, but I would then personalize each of these offers to try to push this person to a point where they can't say no. Because I'm giving them exactly what they want, how they want, when they want. And so I'm doing a kind of a concierge service. You tell me what you need. I'll figure out if I can make that happen. And if I can, then that becomes my offer. And trying to get to that point. So Eric, as you work with crafting offers and you now understand what somebody is looking for, what do you do when that person may not be, I will say, the most competent in helping themselves tell you what they want? Meaning that they're looking left and you're trying to get them to look right because that's where the benefits are at. you're They're looking at the car on the driver's side and you're going, no, all the wildlife's on the passenger side. Why don't you look to out the window to the right?
It's really difficult because when you're talking to people who are predisposed to a very specific type of investment, which is kind of what you're talking about, even though your product that you're trying to get funded fits their profile, it's very difficult because they can't see that. Okay. They don't understand that you're in their box. So the best thing that I've ever done is, and this is just super simple, stupid, but the very best thing I've ever done was say to them, let's go visit some of your projects. Let's look at what you've done, because you've got to show interest in what they've done. So now what you've done is you've changed the conversation from, I want you to look left, to, I want to look right. And then when you look right, you have to be praising what they've done, whether you think it was good or not, because these people have something you want. So go ahead and go to the right with them. Spend whatever, if they're big enough, you spend whatever amount of time they want. If they want to talk about, in your case, if they want to talk about Little League Baseball, you sit down and you talk about Little League Baseball, and then there will be an opportunity. There always is an opportunity to say, this is great. I think my project can help Little League Baseball, and this is how. But until you get there with that kind of individual, you can't make that distinction, right? You're stuck because they don't want to hear it. And the only way to get unstuck is to appreciate what they have done. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, we've encountered that with the Renaissance League, and this is sorting and sifting. It's kind of like I got to go in the warehouse and find the right story for the person I'm talking to. If I start a conversation with someone that we're going to talk about rugby, I almost always lose everybody who's never played rugby, doesn't understand rugby, is not even sure it's a sport. It may be, something that happens somewhere else because they never played the sport. Their kids are not playing the sport, and automatically they're going, well, we don't have anything in common because my kid's playing baseball and you're talking rugby. If I reframe this as this whole sports organization is a pilot demonstration of how we're going to reorganize the sports industry to be self-sustaining with a primary goal of reducing the cost of sports to the parents of children that are engaged in sports. I immediately changed the tone of this conversation because every parent I've talked to, whether they're wealthy, non-wealthy, or they're in financial need, goes, I want my kid to play sports and I can't afford to pay for all this. And we have an immediate commonality where I'm now addressing one of their problems. If I said rugby, I would have gone off the rails. If I said female rugby, I also could have gone off the rail because their kid's a boy and they don't want to talk about female rugby, they want to talk about male rugby. But if I talk about the cost to parents of youth sports, which is the crisis point that we're trying to address, now I have everyone, whether their kids play rugby or not, we're having a conversation. Well, how are you going to do that? What's involved? How will it benefit me? Because that's ultimately the question you have to answer from the investor candidate standpoint. It isn't how their money's going to help you. You need the money. You're going to grow your business up. You're going to do all these good things. But that isn't the reason they're making the decision because they want to help you. They're trying to help themselves. So in their own self-interest, when you're talking to the person and understanding them and you've had these conversations, you should be able to know why you can help them, how you can help them, what they need to hear in order to understand what you're doing that's going to help them. And that is all built into your offer. If you say, hey, give me money, I'll give you money, they're going, yeah, but I can invest in a car company or some other company. I can get the same result. So why you? And you're going, well, I can help you with your cost of getting your kid into sports. Well, now I've got something to talk about. Then if I want to double down, I go, are you investing in your kid's sports in order to get them a scholarship in college? And a lot of parents will tell me, yes, that's my game plan, such as it is. And then I go, are you aware of the recent decisions, court decisions involving the NCAA and how NIL, name, image, and likeness, are changing collegiate sports where there may be no scholarships for your kid going forward unless he's playing football, basketball, or one of the, maybe the third tier sport in that college. And most of them go, no, I wasn't aware. I go, well, just like your college plan for getting your kid into college, if you're dependent upon a sports scholarship, you need to stop and rethink it, because that scholarship may not be there when your kid is old enough to go to college. Now we're having a way more meaningful decision because I've made them aware of a problem that is very central to what they're interested in. And now we've got something to chat about because I'm going to try to help them. And so this ability to communicate effectively the benefit to the investor candidate, the ability to communicate how that benefit can be realized, these are all things that should be at the front end of your conversation before you start talking about yourself and your need for funding. So Eric, when the person doesn't get it, when they're basically saying, I don't understand what you're talking about, how do you handle that situation from an investor who doesn't understand your offer or the benefits?
Well, there's only two reasons why that happens in my world. One is they just actually aren't interested. They're playing you along. They're just not interested. Accept the fact that they are not interested and be very polite and walk away. Quit wasting your time. Okay, so that's one. The second one is that they really, the way you presented your idea is too complicated. And I know this sounds awful. It sounds very snobbish, but you've got to dumb this stuff down to where you've got to understand that you're talking to an 8-year-old, even though they may be incredibly sophisticated. Dumb it down, keep it simple, stupid, and go from there. And if you've done that, you shake their hand and you say, God, thank you very much for your time, and followed up with, who do you think that might be interested in what we're doing? And then 6 months later, a year later, when you've been funded, and everybody forgets to do this, they think the contact is gone. It's not gone. 6 months later, you call them up and you say, wow, we really appreciate the time you took. And I just want to let you know that we're funded and look what we're doing now. Because you need, whether you know it or not, you need that library deck at some point in the future. And just because they didn't get it or they didn't want to get it or any of that, you never know what is going to spur them to go, maybe I should have done that. So you have to follow up. It's just like anything. It's salesmanship. It's follow up. It's all of those things.
Yeah, we're going through the analysis on the Renaissance League right now, where we're trying to come up with, I'll say, a common metric. But we have investors who we want to put money into the company to give us working capital. But at the same time, we're talking to sponsors about associating their brand with our brand. And that's good because they give us money when that comes in the form of revenue as opposed to equity. So we're not having to give up part of our
Mhm.
future profits and revenue. And then we're talking with fans who we want to join a fan club and buy merchandise and tickets and so forth. And we want that revenue to come in the door. But if we looked at it again only from the perspective of what's in it for me, we're missing out on the opportunity because, as you just described it, anyone who will help you succeed in your goal, no matter how that occurs, writing a check is only one way of helping you out.
That's right.
But we're now talking about two different additional levels. One is being a fan, but as a fan, that means being an advocate. Are you telling everybody that you love being a fan, that you love the association with us, that you love the sport, that you love what we're doing? Because if you are, you're helping us. And if we only talk to people who would write checks, we're talking about this itty bitty little part of the population. And we were explaining to people this week that most sports are focused on the athlete when the fans are paying the bill for everything. And the ratio we want of fans to athletes, we would like to see that at 1,000 to 1. So that for every athlete that's on the field, we have 1,000 people out there who buying tickets and merchandise and doing good things for us, and most particularly acting as an advocate. But we're also now implementing what we call everyone's a retailer concept, which
Mm.
is anyone who is a fan can also sell other fans or sell merchandise or sell tickets, and we can pay them a commission as an incentive. So this starts looking like a multi-level marketing campaign. It starts looking like um, uh, any number of different things where you're trying to get them to sell everybody in their network to join with them and become a fan as well. And that's fine because at that point, they're not just paying you revenue, which is a customer. They're not just advocating for you and telling everybody about you, but they're actually selling more for you. And now we're into this combination where they seem like they're helping us all different ways. And so everybody you talk to could be an investor, but probably not. Although a lot of people approach investment that way, but they could all be fans of your business. They could be a customer, even if they're not a customer, they still may tell everybody how good of a business you are. And you need that kind of publicity. You want that kind of relationship with everybody. So we then are going back and forth with sponsors who are paying us to do the brand, but we're asking them, yeah, but can you tell your customers about us? Can you sell to your customers, get them to buy tickets, merch, and fan memberships? Because if you can, actually, you might make more money selling to those people in your network than you are paying us. Offset the cost of your sponsorships. You get to balance it out. So we're now treating the entire world as prospective members of our fan base. That everyone who we approach, we're also talking to them about, hey, would you like a side hustle? Would you like to make a little extra money, put it in your pocket? Then get other people to sign up and be fans. Help them, learn about the sport, learn about this, get discounts, all these kinds of things. And we've changed our story because over here, we like people to write checks. We want to put capital in the bank. We can give them a package. But as we shift to sponsors, we shift to fans, the package changes, but they have common elements. And having a relationship with a person is fundamental to all of these. An investor is not an ATM machine that you punch and money pops out. It's
Yeah.
it's an exchange of value that takes place over time, and your ability to communicate to an investor candidate that you see them, you know them, you understand what they need, what they want, and being able to give them that within an investment offer is a demonstration of respect for that person and for their resources that they are putting at risk by investing in your organization, your project. So, Eric, as we're crafting the offer, what can we do to punch up that question of we're trustworthy, this is a good deal, anything that makes this overcome the usual objections to making any investment anywhere, anytime?
I know that most people would think that this is BS, but I think if you don't have a credible board of advisors or a credible company of advisors, and your board of advisors, sometimes what I'll see is they'll have a board of advisors and they're all really wealthy people, very highly successful, but they have nothing to do with what you're doing. That is like, oh, such a red flag. So you need to get a competent board of advisors that are in the industry and have been successful in that industry. And, that board of advisors they need to be able to be researchable. Just because you're really good in the industry, but you can't be found anywhere, really, or it's really difficult to find you, that's not good. So find some good, competent board of advisors who believe in your project. Even better, if you can say they have invested in this project as a board of advisor. And if it doesn't matter if it's $100, you need to have them say, and I've invested because I really believe in the project. Because, in your industry, Carl, you're going to need, it's not sports figures. And I would think that would be the first misconception. You don't want the Denver Broncos on your debt board as a board of advisor, right? Right. But the guy who is the uniform owner of the uniform making company, suddenly that's a pretty good board of advisor. Right. Because they're close to what you're talking about. So don't mistake high profile versus high quality, because they're not necessarily the same.
Right. And this gets back to an interesting benefit of being an investor, particularly a strategic investor, where this has already happened as we are rolling out this company and we are putting together essentially a board of advisors in the form of contractors. So if you think of it as a board of advisors and a complete library, if I was to build a library on how to run a sports organization, I'd want one chapter on this, one on this, and one on this. I want one expert in every field. So I have one on uniforms, I have one on sponsorships, I have one on tournament management. We're building an army of specialists who can all work together. But what is interesting is now, as we're building this army where we have a common vision, which is addressing youth sports and coming up with a new economic model for doing this, all of our people are going, I want to meet everybody else that's on your team. We're creating, in effect, a private club of all these people who are advising us and assisting us in doing what we're doing. And we're creating value because of those relationships, because of access to that. And this is another benefit to a potential investor, is if you come on board, here's the people that we're working with. And there's maybe somebody in there you want to talk to, and we can make an introduction. We can help you meet that person. This thing keeps growing almost day by day as we go, well, here's another thing that we have added to the stack, and it changes the perspective to everybody. Go, oh, I never thought of that as being part of the thing. I see we have a guest has come on to the show. Hi, Vicki. It's good for you to be with us. I'm glad you found our podcast this morning. We're talking about funding, and we're using youth sports, and particularly female rugby sports, as an illustration. But if you have a question about raising funding, about crafting an offer, just go ahead and put it in the comment line, and we'll be happy to try to answer your question that's more specific to your particular capital needs and your capital campaign. So thanks for being with us this morning. And this is the thing that a lot of people, they kind of zero in, they silo on to just one aspect, one benefit of the investment, which is the return on investment. And this is like, a basic check the box. You've got to have a potential not only to give the money back to your investor, but to give them a little extra. But as you described earlier, that's not going to tip somebody over to make an investment, because that's what everybody can offer. You've got to give them that something extra, and that something extra needs to be as pinpoint to that particular investor candidate as you can make it. And the larger the investor candidate, the more significant they are to your success, the more time that you can spend with them, learning who they are, what they are, and you're investing in that potential investment coming forward by learning what it is. And then as you craft the offer, you're going to personalize it. And I always like to go into the conversation where the first thing out of my mouth isn't, oh, I need money, because that is about as quick a way to turn off somebody's attention span as I can think of. I'm asking them, I'm telling them, I said, I'm working on something I think could help you get to where you want to go. And I lay it out for them. I said, here's how I think I could help you with what you're trying to do, as I understand it. And I'm looking for feedback. I'm looking for confirmation. But if they say, yes, that would be helpful to me, now we have a reason to continue our conversation, which will lead to the point where I'm going, I could do more for you if I had more money in my hands. And at that point, they're like, well, yeah, since I see how you can help me, and I can do my own valuation on the extent and value, benefit, however you want to call it, of what you're doing for me, then I can look at my money and I go, this would be a good use of my money to help myself. It's a total self-interested statement that is evaluated by the person who's making the investment decision. I think they can help me, and I would like for them to do that, and I will give them money so that they will help me. I'm just buying a service at this point in time. And if I can get to that point where they see it, understand it, whatever, I always like to ask the additional question, what else can I do to help you? Because I don't totally know your business inside and out. I'm not running your business. I don't have that level of engagement. So what else can I do? And I find it helps set the table that I do care about them. I do care about helping them. That kind of credibility, trustworthiness contributes significantly to getting them to make an investment. And obviously I'm shooting for the low hanging fruit. So I'm looking for people who already understand what I'm trying to do, who are in alignment with what I'm trying to accomplish. But now I've got to figure out how can I benefit them so much that not investing in me is not really an option. So how do you get to that point, Eric, where you're trying to get somebody to believe that they really don't have a choice? Investment must happen.
Boy, that's the impossible task, right? So let's use my example today of our platform that we're building, right? So what we had to do was we had to segregate out our candidates, as you call them, very differently. We really have 5 distinct groups. Okay, but let's only talk about 3. So you have the family office, who happens to own a lot of businesses, and they're trying to figure out how to divest those for the maximum profitability without really having to give up control. Well, it's really hard. It's an easy thing to go start a business, but Carl, it's really hard to sell a business. So what we have that group, we have the family office group that have businesses, and either they don't have errors or there's a problem, right? So we are solving a problem for them. The second group is the private equity group. Well, they are in a crisis right now. People don't realize it, but they are in a serious crisis because they are stuck with legacy assets that they can't move. And if you can't move a legacy asset, what happens is you don't have money to reinvest out in the world. So that's a different category of person. And we're going to try to show them specifically how they can get those legacy assets off their books at a reasonable rate without having, because what happens to them, Carl, as you know, is they have to dump them. And they have to dump them at rock bottom basement prices. And that's not good for anybody. And the third category that we've identified is the mom pop crypto buyer, right? And he's a totally different animal. This is an animal that is going to invest with us because they're the do-gooders, right? They want to see the crypto world win. They want to believe, in our case, decarbonization, alternative fuels, and energy. And they want to see that work because they're the environmentalist kind of group, right? So that was the only way that we could figure out, there's others, but those were the three big ones of how to get them off the dime. So, and obviously that creates different presentations, that created a different money value, right? Because the guy in the PE world has, and it's all about liquidity, right? So let's go back to something we haven't even talked about. But if you really want to get somebody off the dime, I would argue that you have to be able to show some kind of liquidity because they don't want to be in this thing forever.
Yeah, so for those people in our audience, we're using terms now from the capital industry, and if we've exceeded your understanding of what we're talking about, liquidity is the ability to not put money into a company, but to get your money back.
Right.
And yeah, liquidity means that you will have a chance to resell your investment at a later point in time, hopefully for more money than you paid for it. If you're on a registered stock exchange where you're buying General Motors, there are people out there with a set marketplace that facilitates the buying and selling of stock anytime you want to, anywhere around the world. But if you're in a private company, there is no established marketplace, and it becomes very difficult to get out of your investment to sell it to someone else. Now, you may be able to sell it back to the company. They may have made a provision to doing that. You may sell it to a next round investor. You may sell it just on an open market kind of concept where somebody is interested in stepping into your shoes and becoming the investor. And that's all kinds of additional information that we're going to get into for another day. But yeah, again, we're talking about different people get different types of value, different benefits from it, the same investment in the same company. So you need to have different packages which are tailored to what they get back, which makes sense to them for the benefit that they're going to get. And so, a straight up private equity firm versus a family office versus an individual angel versus a government program, they all get different benefits from the success of the same business, but the benefits are different. So the offers need to be different as well. I want to pick up on Vicky's question here before we run out of time today. Vicki put this question on the table with regard to building a board of advisors. And I will share with you my approach, see if we can get Eric to tell me where I went wrong on this. But um, um, I look at the entire operation of a business and I ask myself, who could do any of the tasks or any of the activities in my business the best in the world? Meaning that, is there somebody out there who's been there, done that, who knows this inside and out, who could write a treatise on it, teach a college education course, could come in and tutor me so that I'm the best I can be? So if I can identify every single task that I need to do or a group of activities that contribute to the success of my business, who would be that one person who could show me how to do it better than anybody else? And that person may be available as a consultant. They may be available as a mentor or some lesser status. But the net of it is that I want to break down my business into a process. And along that process, I'm going to do all these activities. So who knows my customer best? Who knows how to communicate to my customer best? Who knows how to create the communication to talk to my customer? What is the back office platform I'm going to use to communicate with my customer? And you can see I'm breaking this down. And as we go through this, people come and says, well, I need a lawyer, I need an accountant, and so forth. And I go, great, don't disagree, but you also need all these other people. If you're going to make a particular product, who's your supplier? Where's the material coming from? What's the best practices in manufacturing? And make a list of all the different types of knowledge that would allow your business to be the best it can be. Who are the people who are the best of kind, top of their profession within each of those? And you probably can't afford them, or you may not be able to get to them, or you may be too busy. But now you've got all the different buckets of the different kinds of people that you need. And then you go to those who you think have an interest in what you're trying to accomplish, and you start negotiating a deal. So this is an investment offer, not necessarily, but for services, for knowledge, for a relationship, for access to their network. So if you lay out a advisor agreement, and I'll post one up on my instant funding, I'll post up a link to one that we use as a template. As an advisor, I want you to share knowledge with me, and I'm going to ask you to share this much knowledge for this much pay. If you give me more knowledge, we're going to move you to a consultant status. We're going to pay you more. So it's kind of a standby consultant, the way to look at them. Then ask them. So can they post a media article? Can they endorse you, give a testimonial? Can they do a release where they talk about how good you are? Make a list of all these different things they can do for you as an advisor, and then try to figure out how you can reward them for giving this to you, whether it's stock or cash or association with the other advisors, a retreat that you put on once a year. It's got to be a fair exchange. It can't be a one-way type of a deal where you're the only one that benefits from this. You're not that special, as I say. So make a list, break down your business into all these activities, find who the best in the world are, and then maybe lower your expectations to find someone who's less expensive, more available, that you can afford. But ask them to invest in your company with their knowledge, services, and contacts, and then try to figure out what kind of reward, compensation that you can offer to them that meets their needs as you move forward. Anything to add to that, Eric?
Yeah. So it's when you're putting your board of advisors together, and Carl, you're right. They don't do this for free. But just because they don't do it for free I think it's very important for you to understand that that doesn't always mean money.
Right.
It, you know, for example, in my case, we're assembling a board of advisors that are world leaders in crypto technology and blockchain because we need them. None of them want actual money. None of them want any ownership in the company, but they all want, it's interesting, they all want to be part of, and we're going to go down a rabbit hole and I apologize, but they all want to be part of my concept of the private coin. And so that was really interesting. So it was a quick, easy, down and dirty sale to get them on the board. Because they all had projects that require this new mechanism. Okay. So what I would say to you, Vicki, is sit down with them and talk to them. You know, I see where it's interviewing, communications, professionalism for Gen Z. That sounds to me like it's journalism to me. That sounds a lot like journalism. So if that's the case, then there are a lot of really high quality journalists that are still left in the world. And many of them live right here in Colorado. Approach them because they may actually want to be on your board of advisors for the sole purpose of being able to get to the Gen Z population. I don't know, but I would guess that if you ask nicely, there's no better form of compliment than to ask for help. And the highest quality journalists in journalism, which it's a huge field. If you ask for help, my guess is you're going to have overwhelmingly great response, especially if you can say, this is what we want to fix with Gen Z. And if they want to be a part of Gen Z, which they do because they have to, then they're going to offer their services up, at least as a poster board on your website or something like that, because it's necessary. You have to remember, they need an audience. They need someone to read their stuff. So that's something I would do. Ask for help. My God. I mean, most business people, if you ask for help and you come hat in hand, like, I have a problem. Can you help me? Most of them, that's a great form of flattery. So kind of maybe try that approach.
Well, you want to reach out to all these people anyway. You want to build the relationships, and then it's a matter of elevating that relationship a notch or two up the ladder where you're going, I actually need an advisor. So what would be a fair exchange of, value for value? And you're correct. It doesn't have to be cash. In fact, what you're doing may be the value they're looking for. Your platform, your information you're gathering, access, all could be things of value that you could put into your proposal to this group of experts who you're surrounding yourself with. So Eric, I see, needs to go. So I need to let him go. But before I do, thanks, Vicki, for being in the audience today. Thank you for everybody who's watching this recording, which will be captured and shown forever on LinkedIn and on YouTube. But one last shout out. Next week on Thursday, I will be on a panel talking about regulation crowdfunding at SuperCrowd 25. This is a 2-day virtual conference on investment crowdfunding. It's free to the world. Everybody can watch it online, and for the 2 days. I will be on at 3:20 in the afternoon on the 21st on a panel talking about investors, and look forward to my contribution to the panel. Devin Thorpe is the orchestrator of this 2-day conference, where he's brought together a lot of the leading experts in the world on the whole topic of raising money through investment crowdfunding, and it's free, so it's affordable to everyone. So if you want more information on that, you can go to SuperCrowd 25 online. You can go to look at my instant funding newsletter. published on LinkedIn. I have the links there within the newsletter for this. And the Renaissance League, which we've been talking about today, is an official sponsor of this two-day conference as we lay the groundwork for our Reg CF campaign later this year. So thank you to everyone for being with us today. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Successful Funding Show at 8 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock Eastern. Eric, thanks for being on the show today. And we'll be in touch later in the week on multiple matters.
Great. Thanks a lot, Carl. You have yourself a great day.
Take care, everyone.